This meeting is being recorded.
Is that okay, Rick?
Yeah, that's fine. It's totally fine.
Well, it's my pleasure to say you're in the presence of many old friends. Some very close to you. Eva is here, Jade is here, and Mark is here. Other people in our wonderful audience know you well. And this is sort of a psychedelic salon. And I'll just try and bring us into it a little bit. And then, we'll all take over. You'll take over. So you and I met in 1984 at Essel.
Yeah.
You were a very young man. I was even a very young man. And you were in a wonderful place. You would do this thing of sitting by the Esalen waterfalls, sleeping by the Esalen waterfalls. And, we were having a wonderful time. It was 1984 was legal period. MDMA was in full blast. We were having a wonderful time. We had people from all over the world coming to us and talking about psychedelics. And you had already, from my understanding, you had already agreed upon your grand vision, which was always legalization, decriminalization. But you spoke of legalization. We all did.
Yeah. I just want to say about the camping spot that I found. It's against the rules to camp out at Esalen. And so I found this incredible spot where you actually could do it and almost nobody could see you.
I could.
It was, yes, it was just this like a loophole almost. And it was just such an incredible spot that the high tide would come up around it. What I would do is when the tide went out, I would gather little stones and rocks and stuff, and then I would move them on top of the other stones. And it was just the mountain comes right back behind you. And then there was a few feet of the stones that I would build up of soft stones on top of the rough stones. And then I'd be just perched on the edge of the continent, and the high tide wouldn't get me. I was protected, a little stream with Esalen behind me. And it was my power. And later I found, Stan was saying too, that it was like the Indians felt like the Esalen Indians, that was kind of like a power spot for them. Well, it's a
wonderful spot down the stream. And we always loved you and admired you for that. And we were on the pinnacle where Terrence McKenna would give silver tongue speeches, and Claudio Narano was there, and Sam was there, and Sasha, and Ann, and so many wonderful people.
And Albert Hoffman even.
Yeah, it was a wonderful time, a very heady time. And I think it's an important time in terms of your formation, my formation, our formation.
Yeah.
From the 60s on into that sense that the classification of mind substances, heart substances as illegal was something that we would oppose with all our might. And you did. You have.
Yeah. And that was the critical time. That was absolutely critical time for figuring out the strategies, because that's when we knew what it was like when it was legal. We knew it was going to become illegal. And we tried the legal route to protect it. And in the end, even though we won, we got crushed. Even though the judge was on our side, we crushed. And that's where it came that the only strategy was through the FDA.
Yeah, it was a terrible blow because we had won. We were on national TV all over. We were really promoting it. It was still the end of the 60s. People were still hyped up about, freedom of consciousness, freedom of mind, freedom of spirit. And it was coming, crashing down slowly but surely, with strange tendencies like the ultra weatherman tendency. Things of that sort kept coming down around us as we moved into that phase. And then you started MAPS. You started MAPS in 86 after this happened, right? 89, I'm sorry.
Well, no, 86. And actually that was the same year that Burning Man started.
Yeah.
So there was this kind of sense. And actually what was also building then, or near the end of that, was the AIDS epidemic in near the end of the decade, and this kind of sense that there was just the processing of cultural trauma with MDMA in different ways, that even though that it had totally escaped, that's where this idea really had escaped from the therapy community into much more widespread use. And the criminalization, what was meant to kind of stop it, actually spread word about it even more and built the platform in a much better way. It gave us actually a good opportunity to have all these different kinds of people, monks and rabbis and others, and therapists, and you, Phil. And I do admire what you did about working with adolescents. I mean, maybe if you wanted to talk about that.
I don't know. It's just looking back on my old tendencies of adolescence, working with extended to adolescents, because they always deserved our work with ketamine, and we couldn't do it with MDMA. We did, of course. People did all kinds of things underground with MDMA, so we saw plenty of adolescents. My own son was certainly an adolescent who I tripped with and always had the pleasure. I wrote an article for the magazine called "Suggested Rules for the Road," how parents could be conscious in parenting, that you kindly published around, being conscious and not hypocrites with kids, and when to protect them and when to open the door, and when you hid your marijuana and people were lying smoking in their basements. I knew others people were hiding underground from their kids and smoking weed in their basements and worrying what the kids were going to do. And the DARE program, as you remember,
yeah.
were worried about turning people in. So, adolescents have sort of always been in our lives in that way. And they're very complicated people.
Yeah.
I've had them.
For sure. But I always admired that about you, that you were willing to take that chance of working with those people where the need was great.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So maybe let's look a little longitudinally. I know it's provocative, but things have moved a very long distance, and there are all kinds of views of where you've moved and how it's affected you. Some sense that it was foreseeable, and once we entered FDA and once we played the game, and here we are. You just announced Lycos. You've just announced a whole new for-profit thing. I wonder. I'm not asking you to tell us all your deep feelings, but it's been a long stream. It's a long river. What do you think about it?
Well, I think I ran into some rocks right where I thought I was getting to shore. I think that's a good way to say it. There were some sharks swimming around in the shallow water, as I was coming to land.
You mean white sharks, I think.
Well, what I mean is that I did have this hope and at least this initial expectation about going all the way with philanthropy and having the philanthropically funded for-profit public benefit corporation be the vehicle. It would be for-profit. We would take advantage of data exclusivity, but that and then it would kind of be self-generating, but it would still be encased in a nonprofit context and a public benefit context. I've come to see how through kind of an insecurity, you could say, is that I knew how to do the research to satisfy the FDA. That's all what I studied. It was, that's my PhD, my dissertation, how to satisfy FDA. I don't think it would have been that complicated how to market a drug, having had some experiences doing it in some pretty simple ways. But I think that the professionals of saying commercial distribution, patient access, insurance coverage, all this of a pharmaceutical product that's a highly scheduled drug is a whole different set of skills, and leave it to us and we will, figure that part out. And I think that there was that choice where I deferred to expertise, which I think is something that I rarely do, and I should do even less probably, because I think that what I meant by deferred expertise is I didn't really make them explain it to me. They were not kind of I was just like, oh yeah, they're the experts, they know, and it just felt like let me say one of the biggest challenges right now with Lycos is, and this is, this exactly, and the people, one of the biggest challenges is therapist self-experience. It's obviously needed. That's how you train people. It's obvious to everybody, but how do you, argue for that? How do you create that actually happening? And we've been able to do that. We at sort of earlier days, we're able to do that with these protocols. The first protocol was 125 people went through it. Everybody in phase 3 was there, practically went through that. And then by the time we built this big infrastructure, everything cost way much more. It became too expensive to do. So also, what about thousands of people? How do we train thousands of therapists and give them MDMA? What is the vehicle? Do we want to drive them all underground, or do we want to just prescribe off-label, which will never happen because the drug's not going to be covered by insurance off-label, and it's going to be expensive. So we've got to find some legal way for therapists to get an MDMA experience. And my feeling is that the LICOs, there's this debate. I think it might end up the right way, but it's been a long time delayed. Will they give away the protocol in a way that we have approved to our trained therapists, Bruce and Marcella, and let them move forward? I think there's a way in which there's no regulatory existing mechanism. The only one really is a protocol, that you have to study something. You can't just say this is for the training of a therapist for a controlled substance. So I see the profit kind of, and the think about, is this really, there's a little bit of a less appreciation for the delicacy of this and the need for really fully trained therapists, particularly at the early stages of the launch. So there's this, dynamic through the board. The Project Basu, who is joining the board of directors, the representative of all the investors from Helena, is really good, is very
Weird.
what?
Well, I agree with you.
Yeah. So I think, we're so lucky. So I think that he will be an ally against kind of the risk aversion. I'm starting to understand two different organizations which innovate and then which are kind of trying to work within the kind of system. And so that I think what's happened is that it's gone from an innovative kind of, this has never been done before, to, oh, how does everybody do this? What's the normal way? And to give you an example, it is right now, how much of the budget, how are we going to do this? Will they allocate money to train the next 100 or so people who would be then the mentors for the new therapists, watching their videotapes? And we've trained a bunch of people, but they've never even done MDMA. So how can you think that you're going to get a bunch of people who've never done MDMA to watch the videotapes of other therapists who are just now starting to give it to PTSD patients and really have confidence that you're doing the best you can to train these therapists? You need to give the mentor, these consultants, their own MDMA experience. And yet it's been lagging and lagging and lagging and lagging. And so this is kind of this.
Well, clearly, there's a lot of effort. I wonder if we get away from some of the difficult details. There are a lot of difficult details that I'm vaguely aware of. And we go back to what we're also seeing is mass movements for people to legalize substances,
yes,
medicines. And in a certain way, the counteraction to the cost of MDMA as it's emerging from the fulcrum is the legalization, much like mushrooms have been legalized in some places, marijuana. Yes. And don't we really want to foment a mass movement, which is going on in many parts of the world as decriminalization, at least, to not end up charging people $25,000 or whatever for 3 sessions? Because all it does is, in the end, from my humble point of view, drive us into the underground or drive us to spend $25, for a hit of MDMA on the streets, which is what's happening in masses and masses of people. Much as we look at this small efflux of MDMA into the world, which is good. I mean, we want it to be prescribable, but we also want it to be available. And you're stuck with that for great difficulty, as we are in the ketamine.
Okay, I 100% agree with you. You are totally right. and that MDMA should be completely legal for $10 or whatever in the purest form that you can make it by the pharmaceutical companies for people to do outside of medicine and outside of some sort of a church. They shouldn't even have to. The religious protection is doing great for psychedelic churches. They're a really growing phenomena with hardly any enforcement, but I think this legal right to do it. Now, the question is really, of course, the prohibition is counterproductive. It's terrible. It should, and we should be legal. But then the question is how, if you are going to make that available, is that good or bad for the business? That's where a lot of the
It's unforeseeable when its impact is on the business.
Well,
Plus, the now is so much greater than the business can accommodate if you really look at it.
But yes, exactly. So my thing is, and this is what I've been saying, MAPS, hopefully LICO says they have no position on the drug war, or on, that'll leave to them. They won't obstruct anything MAPS is doing, but they have no position. They're operating in a vacuum. They think that's kind of a good thing. But I think that there's 13 million PTSD patients in America. There's way more that are like not diagnosed. There's sub-threshold. We're all struggling with lots and lots of trauma all the time. So I think that actually, if it's legal for $10 and people will be able to self-medicate and do peer support and help each other, that there'll be an enormous amount of good done, way more than any kind of problems, but that there will still be an interest in people going to the FDA-approved version where it's covered by insurance, and you've got a lot of the insurance going to the therapist. So the drug is part of it, but then, so that if you can reduce the cost of the drug, that's like when it goes generic too. You're still going to have the human costs. The therapy costs are still going to be significant, and that's what we're saying. The treatment is really the therapy. So I think there's these are on parallel tracks. Obviously, we should get it for $10 as quickly as possible. And then we should also get it as to a medicine for thousands of dollars covered by insurance, where the copay is $25, something like that.
The legal period, we were all delivering care, and we were delivering it in therapeutic ways. MDs, the prescribers, it was costing like $300 to $500 for a 5-hour session. It's doable under the legal period. Even now, people are bringing mushrooms into therapist's office, where the therapist isn't prescribing it, and they're legal mushrooms, so the person can do it, imbibe them under the influence of the therapy and take advantage of it. That's beginning to happen, which is kind of exciting, I think.
Yeah. And I think what we'll also see is it's been difficult for us to get a lot of information about how different ways MDMA can be used in those kind of contexts, because those are the ones that have approved plant medicines. But in those particular situations, people haven't been comfortable enough to go ahead and say, oh yeah, synthetics are okay. So
that's a good lead into ketamine, because ketamine is not restricted, and we're able to apply it to all diagnoses that are appropriate, and there are so many, and we have good success, and we're developing, bona fides for the success. We're training people. We're over 900 people now as practitioners who come into the training programs. And so we're expanding the notion of ketamine assisted psychotherapy. At the same time, we have, Matthew Perry, and we have Scandals, and we have stuff of diversion and all the rest of that. Not really greater than most other substances, but it's hard. And I wonder how you're feeling about ketamine. I should tell you that we're about to start an acute a trauma phase program to train practitioners in Israel in large numbers, hopefully within a month. We're going to try and train 50 to 100 people to go out and do trauma care in Israel. Maybe some of the MAPS people will come to join us, we'll see. But we're able to use the tool flexibly in good ways, inexpensively, relatively, not entirely, and bring it into the fold of good treatment programs. So I wonder what you're noticing and feeling about ketamine.
Yeah, well, I think that there's clear evidence, from Bastian's that LSD worked or helped, was very helpful for what they call concentration camp syndrome for PTSD. We have really good evidence for MDMA. There's gathering evidence for psilocybin that's going to be good as well. I think ketamine, I think, has been studied also for depression, for PTSD, and there's some promising there too. So I think, holotropic breath work, gets things moving.
We just did a session today. We did a holotropic session.
Okay, that's great. Yeah. So I think that ketamine, it's like, what are its unique circumstances and who is it ideal for? And in what ways does it engage? And in what ways does it, go to a different level in a way? So people can, I've had, some of my most important psychedelic experiences under the influence of ketamine. That.
Good to hear.
Yes, I'd love to hear more.
We'll help you integrate. We're always here to help you integrate.
Oh, okay. Well, I've spoken about this before, but this was okay. This is so good. This is during the days of when we were at Esalen. Okay. Now you can tell me so this was the first time I ever tried DMT, and it was with Terrence McKenna and I think Andy Well, but
wasn't this 5-MeO we did in the big tent?
We did. This was a different time. Yes, we did 5-MeO there. So this was 2 days in a row. The first day we did the DMT smoking with Ralph Metzner was there. It was, and then the second day, a bunch of us did ketamine. IM. So we did IM ketamine the second day. And so these were all internal kind of therapeutic experiences. This was on the weekends. We had to be careful. You weren't supposed to be doing certain kind of things. But that this was, it was a sequence. It was a psychological sequence that went through the DMT and the ketamine experience. And so the DMT was a group of us. We would, each one would do it. It was great. We were holding space for each other. It's 10 minutes, something like that. You go out and you come back and you talk about it, and then the next person does it. And so it was a whole evening. And it was just really delightful, but Terrence is sort of portraying it as what you're going to see, little elves, or, which I happy to say I did not see. But I felt like that I was part of everything and everything was part of me. I'll focus more on the ketamine trip. So this was part of everything. Everything was part of me. It was beautiful, I was out in space, the DMT, and then I had this thought that if everything is part of you and you're part of everything, then Hitler is part of you too. And I'm like, oh my God, that's logical.
Many of us have tripped like that. Yes.
I'm like, oh fuck. And that was just like a stone.
Make up everything in your mind, then you can make up everything else besides death or war, or you can make up hatred. You can make up anything. If you really get Cartesian in the ketamine experience, you're the author of all being.
Yeah. And so that was just so shattering for me, that thought that, talk about owning your own shadow. For me, that was like this big, like owning my own shadow. And it just troubled me for that whole day. And so then, but it was true, I knew it. And so then when we did ketamine, what happened was that I sort of found myself hovering in the air behind the head of Hitler as he was giving one of his big speeches to his big rallies. There's these enormous, rows and rows and rows of people, and he's giving this speech. And I'm thinking, all right, I better figure out, how do I get into his head? He's part of me, I'm from him. How do I get into his head to make him want to do something different? And
that's a bad trip, my man. A bad trip.
Yeah, so I'm feeling this kind of panic come over me, like I'm, maybe not going to be able to succeed in this mission. And I feel like it's like these bubbles of panic, like when you're underwater breathing. And if these bubbles were breaking the surface, I would be like turning away. I had to contain it. I had to contain this fear. And these bubbles, I couldn't let them reach the surface. And then took a bunch, and I realized ketamine, aha, you can breathe. You can breathe. And I was like, okay. So I took a bunch of deep breaths and I got into the place where like, okay, now let me just observe more. And so I started seeing this symbiotic behavior between Hitler and the Fuhrer and the masses. And I saw that the whole Heil Hitler salute in a different way. So the Heil Hitler was like this. Heil Hitler, he would do it, and everybody would do it back to him. And it would go back and forth. And I felt it was like the concentrated energy of all these people going to him. And then he would push it back to them. And then they would do it back and forth, and how they felt all one. This is beautiful. We're all one. He always talks about the unity, and, we're all one. We're all doing this together. So there's that beautiful, mystical, unitive kind of thing that he's doing. And I feel like this frequency is going up and up and up between him and the crowd. And I realized I cannot get into his head. There just is not, it's not going to work. I said, but all these people that are giving away their power to him, that's the locus of healing. That's the mass mental health. There's always going to be megalomaniacs and dictators, but they get their power from the people that they manipulate through fear and anxiety. And here's the enemy out there. And we got to somehow or other make it so that these people can't mobilize the masses in that same way. So it's a democratizing of mysticism, and that came from this kind of ketamine experience. And I think the ketamine gave me the safety. Like I was there, but I wasn't really there, meaning I knew I was hovering above. I was in this scene, but I wasn't exactly captured in it or something. Well, I was free, they couldn't see me. I could see them, but they couldn't see me. So I was kind of in this free spot, and it was just the most terrifying kind of situation. But that the ketamine gave me that ability to, once I realized I could breathe. So that's the therapy part too, that I had internalized was, don't turn away, open up to it. And I felt that has kind of guided exactly what we started talking about, because when you talk about this kind of the democratizing of it, you need drug legalization. We need medicalization and we need drug legalization both. We need to work with the leaders. We need to work with opinion makers, things like that. But we also need to work with everybody and make it available in both ways. So I attribute a lot of my, as I've thought about it over the years, that ketamine experience, that there are people like Trump that, people always say, give him MDMA, and all of a sudden it'll become, empathic. But, he got COVID and it didn't help him. Yeah.
It's a long haul, we agree. That's a wonderful story. I want to turn the mic over to my wonderful crowd here and let them engage with you, okay?
Sure, of course. I'd love to. Yes, Phil.
Who wants it? Come on.
Who wants to talk to the Doblin? One chance in life. Thank you so much for sharing that ketamine experience. I'd love to know about other experiences you've had.
I have one that another ketamine experience that this was like it sort of relates to sex therapy a little bit, but okay. So this is like a cautionary tale, I guess I should say.
Well, the last one was too.
Yeah. So this one was there was a woman at Esalen that we had been getting to know each other, and we had made an arrangement to sleep together that evening, but for the first time. But I didn't have a whole lot else to do during the day, so I went to visit a friend, and we ended up doing ketamine. And so, but in this case, we were storing it, and I just got so out of it and so deep into it that I missed my date. I couldn't move. I couldn't go back. So it was like, yeah, a real downside of ketamine.
That's not the downside of ketamine, that's the downside of you.
What a shame. I was actually
It's never the drug.
I was curious about other medicines, but I'll let someone
Oh,
else
no.
ask a question.
No, please, go ahead and ask. I'm sorry.
I was just curious about other medicine, other drug experiences, if you wanted to share any,
Oh,
particularly.
yeah. Um, yeah, okay. I do want to talk about my most recent 5-MeO DMT experience.
Okay.
So, okay, so it goes back to the time when we were there at Esalen. Also, that's Phil, we mentioned it, the 5-MeO experience that we did. And it was very profound and very, people, you couldn't adjust the dose. You just smoked it. You were way out of it. People were rolling around, no longer in control of your body. You needed spotters. You're completely, it was very inspiring to me in the sense that it was like I felt like I got to the moment of creation, like that in every moment you can bring in the energy of the new, that you're never fully really trapped or so, but in some ways you're, but that you can kind of bring in the new. But that was the last time I've ever had 5-MeO, and it struck me very important. But that's a long time ago, and so I've been hearing more and more about the vape pens with the low, medium, and high 5-MeO, and have been, thinking about that. And then hearing from Stan Groff and Brigida that the future of psychiatry is MDMA, and then on top of that is 5-MeO vape pens. This idea of this kind of open-hearted, peaceful, safe, kind of dissolving. And so I've been thinking, but I felt like I know that when I do those things, it can bring things up that take me days and days to integrate. It's not like you say, oh, it's 10 minutes and then you'll be done. And it's not like that. It can be, but it's often I get triggered with something or other. So I know I'm cautious about doing it. It's just not a 10-minute thing. So after psychedelic science, I felt so peaceful in a way. It was so incredible and just so much happened, and I felt I could give myself a bunch of time. And so I went to a friend who's learning how to use these vape pens. And so we planned when I had some therapists there, and this was again in this kind of supportive setting in this beautiful spot in Aspen, land all around. It was beautiful, beautiful. And there was this idea that this would be gradual, that you smoke, you just sort of see how you are for like 5 minutes, and then you can take another hit, or you can do it. And you can do this for an extended period of time. Like hour or two, you could modulate this in different ways. And so I was thinking this would be neat. I do want to sort of approach this kind of center of the universe, kind of bursting energy in every second, but in a gradual way, and see what that's like. And so I did the first puff, wasn't sure of the low dose, and felt that, that was interesting. I could see the expansion, but I also didn't lose my sense of self. So you could say there was no default mode network diminishment or anything. It was just, it was just kind of this expansion. And so I said, yeah, I want to do another one. And then I did another one, and it was a bit more like that, but not that much more. And then I said, well, do you want to do a higher dose? So I said, yeah, let's do it. I hit the medium dose. And so we did that. And I had planned to do that and then to sort of move up to the highest dose. And so I just did one hit of the medium dose, and it kind of brought up this trauma that I hadn't really processed from over 40 years ago. It was like a drug deal gone bad. And so there was a lot of trauma about that. And I hadn't really processed it. And it was scary in a bunch of different ways. And so I felt like I should stay and work with that. So we ended up just spending an hour kind of or so processing that and sort of trying to come at it from different ways and then coming down. And so I found that it was something I hadn't thought about for a really long time, that I hadn't really felt was.
I can't hear you.
It's coming from.
We can't hear you.
Oh.
Your sound went off.
Oh, is that better?
Hear us?
You can
Yeah, I
hear
can
us.
hear you.
Send him a text on the.
Can you hear me?
He can hear us.
He can hear us.
I can hear you, yes. I can put in the chat. Can you hear me?
Can't be.
We didn't touch it.
No, we didn't touch a thing.
He may have hit.
Is it on the Zoom?
It's not muted. And
We could call him on the phone, have him talk through the
Can
phone.
you hear me? No, we can't hear you. No, suddenly we can't.
Oh, I don't know what's happening.
Robert, see the green light on the bottom, mute, see it on the left?
that's when we talk.
Okay.
That's us.
That's us.
Yeah. Wait.
Yeah,
talk
hi,
now,
Jay.
Rick.
Hi, here, we'll just choose
Well, let me
phones.
see if this is.
Oh, you can mute us. Oh, wait, let's see, are you back?
He can hear us.
That's.
Yeah. Can you hear me though?
We can hear you a tiny bit. So there's a little voice there. Something's going on
Okay, I
your
just
end.
muted.
Something on your end because we heard a squeak of you.
Okay. Is that, can you hear me now? Is that it?
Yeah, I can hear you through my phone.
All right, now I'm Jason.
You?
You know, I could just go out and come back in. Why don't I
Oh,
try
that's a
that?
good idea. Okay, that's a good idea.
Log out and log
Yeah,
back
he's gonna go out. Oh,
And
we're recording.
okay.
Okay, it's fine. Should you pause the recording or? Will you pause? Oh, you're not. I forgot that you're not. Okay. Rick,
Now
we'll call
can you hear
you.
me?
Let me-
Oh, darn it, what is going on?
We can't hear you. If you could still hear us, we cannot hear you.
We still don't hear you. Oh, did you just do something?
Will you speak?
Microphone.
You can see right next to his name, he's on mute.
Rick, will you unmute yourself?
Only through my phone.
You're muted.
Yeah, can you hear now?
Unmute yourself. Yeah.
I am unmuted.
I can hear you.
Yes, you're fine.
Oh, great, okay. I did it.
You were in the middle of going over your trauma. You were talking about processing your trauma in the third dose.
Yeah, and I was able to, unpack this sort of thought that because I acted one way in a certain situation, that defined my character. And therefore, if that situation were to reoccur, I was sort of going to crumble in the same way. That this judgment I had made, that this way that I acted that I wasn't proud of was, it wasn't so bad, but just in my internal, it was like a moment that that would be a judgment. That was who I was. That defined who I was, and I was able to.
Can I ask you an integration question for you? If that was 40 goddamn years ago, and you have come against innumerable crossroads in the life, crossroads where you could have taken that path, and you haven't. Don't you want to let go, Bubby? Don't you want to let go of it, Bubby? Don't you want to say, that's not me?
Well, I would say no, because I did say, yeah, that I could act differently in the future. But I do think that it's hard to imagine, what's going to happen if Trump gets elected and what that means to America and how close that is. And so it's hard to say what world we're going to be living in and what we have to prepare for. Yeah, so I do think that this, like I said, I hadn't thought of this incident, but yeah, it's even tricky to talk about. But I think that it's the internal things that are it's not so much what, it's not what somebody mean did. Well, somebody mean did something to me, but it was more about how I reacted. Anyway, I think I knew I needed it. It wasn't a conscious thing. So when you say, why didn't you, look, it just was, that's my psyche presented me with that. That was what was going on with this inner healing wisdom, was this incident. That was the thing. And the 5-MeO just brought to the surface. So this gets back to your question about the ketamine. these different triggers, these different ways, hyperventilation, all these ways get to these same core places. And then we can process them in different ways. They're slightly different flavors. But so I think over time, it'll be the psychedelic therapy wisdom of, where do you use 5-MeO? Where do you use ketamine? Where do you use MDMA? And in what sequence? And, and for which people? And maybe it's always going to be intuition. Like the hundreds of millions or whatever have been spent on psychedelic neuroscience. That hasn't helped a single therapist do a better job at all. Other than.
Can I just say one word about your 5-MeO, because
yeah,
my experience
please
has been
yeah.
valuable witness. I think you had a dosage experience, so you were stuck in the middle dose. And I wouldn't say 5-MeO is committed to the middle dose, but that you could exceed that by far. And you can
I'm
move
sure.
back.
I'm sure. Yeah, but
Dose related.
Yeah, undoubtedly. But it's like this spiritual bypass or something. I felt like this is something that's coming up. This is, so I had wanted to kind of, just like go way beyond it. But I just felt like this was a nugget that sort of was brought up that was more important than, doing something else. This was like, here's a bunch of work, time to do that.
Sure.
And so I look forward to it. Yeah. So I do look forward to exploring again the 5-MeO at higher doses. Thank you, Phil, for the recommendation for higher doses.
Anyone else?
Phil, we have some
We have time
questions.
for one more.
We have a question right here.
Hi, my name is Shimon. I'm a great fan, Rick. I just wanted to ask you a hypothetical question. Imagine you had your way, which we all hope you will, and you would take over the FDA and you would actually write the protocol for exactly how MDMA therapy should be done. What would your protocol be for the integrational process that every therapist needs to follow so we'll get the best results?
Okay. I guess let me say this is a broader question, like the quest for certainty. So I don't know that there is such a thing, that every therapist should do this and follow this and that that's the way. It's not like, I think the same way about rules and regulations of all kinds. So I think that there is this way where this shift between who's doing the healing. I think this big part of it is that we're helping the patients to heal themselves, and that we want them to come on things when they're ready for them, but we want to also nudge them along. It's a very, so when we say non-directive, that's really that's not nuanced at all, and that's not really quite accurate. There is sometimes you see people get stuck, and so I think in this integration process that I think that there's going to be different kind of approaches that different people have that they resonate with or that work for them. And we also know that in this psychotherapy outcome research, that it's the therapeutic alliance that's the key thing that predicts outcome. It's not the different techniques. It's this trust, this safety that people feel that they can explore. So you can do this, I think, with EMDR. You can do it in different ways that you're helping people. I think to answer a simpler question is, I've worked with people who've had difficult LSD experiences like decades before and had never integrated them, and it had always bothered them. And so for that, I've found that MDMA really helps. And actually, I should say there's going to be an article coming out in New York Times. One of the questions they're asking is, were the people at the Nova Rave who were survivors, who were also tripping at the time that the attack happened, how will that help them process the trauma? Will that be embedded even deeper? Will it be more difficult for them to make? So I think you'll encounter this in Israel with a bunch of the people like that were high when the trauma happened.
We already are. Some people are already seeing those people.
Okay, so I think for the integration for some of them, even sometimes I think it helps to go to that deep level again, with a truly safe setting, with sometimes those same or similar psychedelics. And so I think there's going to be no one right way. The other thing is that I think one of the reasons why we've built bipartisan support and have, I think, got a lot of support within the community of therapists and the VA therapists, the DoD therapists, and the traditional non-drug psychotherapists is because there's all these methods, prolonged exposure, cognitive behavioral therapy, cognitive processing therapy, EMDR, all these different therapeutic methods. And what we've basically said is that MDMA is a tool and it can be used with all these different methods in different ways. And what we're finding, I think over time and finding even more, is that the MDMA session becomes more like what's emerging and supporting that. And then the techniques get used more in the prep and in the integration. So some people might do, prolonged exposure and integration. Some people might do the cognitive processing therapy. Some people might just do more, biographical or psychotherapy, a different kind of thing. So I think it's going to be what's right for what person. And so I was just talking to George Goldsmith, who is the founder of Compass and Katya. We had the discussion yesterday. And what he said is that they've got, they meaning Compass Pathways, which is pretty well funded and is coming down the pike with MDMA, with psilocybin, is that they have loads and loads and loads of data scientists who are doing analysis of transcripts of different therapy sessions. And they're trying to come up with, what suggestions you may make, which things seem to help the most, or how to, and that might inform the integration process. So we haven't.
All of that's a lot of cost cutting as well. To come up with the perfect methodology is to make a simulacrum so that you can just duplicate it, stamp it out, tell people what to do, and reduce your costs. It's like so many things going on in this field. And the attempt is to get their cost of goods down. And that's what they've been working on consistently, as TI and all these other groups. How do you do less and less make a profit?
Yeah, well, then the other questions that then come is this idea that, look, you can do ketamine and you can bring out something within, half an hour or something, as opposed to these very long MDMA sessions. So it's hard to measure the depth of different healings and the healings in terms of how people certain symptoms have disappeared, but others, this internal motivation to kind of, try to make a new life for themselves in a better way. So I what I can say is that the stories I've heard about people that have made progress on ketamine seem really genuine. And the ones that I've had myself have been deep and genuine experiences that have, I do, of course, worry about more and more people getting sort of in what we saw a lot during the 80s, 90s was people overdoing ketamine, loads of people doing it, people that we thought should know a lot better, and people having pretty tragic outcomes. We just heard of, Matthew Perry and drowning in the bathtub. So
Matthew Perry, that's unfair, Rick. Matthew Perry
totally
was
right. Totally right. Yeah, you're totally
not labeled ketamine.
Yeah, you're totally right that that's not it's just kind of the social consequences. But so I guess I feel that there's such a restoration of trust with MDMA for PTSD, for traumatized people. And I think the longer you spend with people, the more you can kind of heal that rupture with other humans. So I would guess that in the future, maybe if someone were to say, should I go to ketamine therapy or psilocybin therapy or ibogaine therapy or, for MDMA therapy for my trauma, it could be, hard to see what's right. But I think that the MDMA is really restores a lot, and then it builds courage to try these other things. And I think ketamine can do well with in some ways, a shorter time, but doesn't get to the same place.
I think we're trying to put the psychedelic attestant, Rick, so that we can use all the substances together. You could choose your corned beef psilocybin and your pastrami MDMA, and skilled therapists put this together as we did in the legal period. Remember, that's what we were doing. We weren't saying this is the one.
Yes.
And that's what we were saying. Let's try and amalgamate processes that are beneficial to human beings coming from multiple kinds of sources, multiple kinds of experiences. You've just been talking about yours. I could talk about mine. We're all multiple experiences. We're influenced by all of these. And we'd like to offer them, I think, that way as well.
Yeah.
In
And
an
to show,
individualized,
let me just say, to show how far we've come, the VA just put out an announcement about how they're putting money into psychedelic research, MDMA for PTSD and TBI, and the Congress, signed by Biden, just passed a bill to give the Department of Defense money to do psychedelic research.
And IV ketamine also, huge payment, overpayments for IV ketamine, too much money for ketamine payment. I just saw the schedule.
Wow.
Crazy schedule. Yeah. Like $1,400 for a single IV ketamine session without therapy.
Who pays that? The government would pay that, or?
VA just announced these fees. I was just shown them by one of our participants. $120 per hour for therapy if you get it. But then however many sessions scheduled at vast amounts of money per session. You tune into it. I just saw it.
Wow, okay. Okay, yeah. Maybe you could get the money for the ketamine and not even use it, though, and then pay the therapy.
Watch out. Watch out.
Hey, Rick, my name is Robert Krause. I'm the clinical director, and we're having this training, and I wonder how we could get MAPS to do a MDMA training here. We'd love to have trained therapists.
Okay, so let me speak then now from the pharmaceutical lens, from a group that's about to, that's in the midst of a new drug application. So there's a different view of risk. Again, I talked about innovators versus maintainers or something, or innovating in a traditional way, or what I just mean is bringing something in through traditional channels. So the concern is that training could be seen by the FDA as illegal, pre-approval marketing. That you would think that training therapists is a good thing. And there's such an enormous need that getting more therapists prepared once it becomes a medicine would be a good thing. So somehow or other in their minds that this could be construed by FDA as a bad thing, somehow illegal, pre-approval marketing. It's not really marketing, we're teaching a therapeutic technique, but the entire training program has been shut down in the United States until after FDA approval, except for one exception, which is there's a training coming up inside the VA. So they're going to do that. The Bronx VA is going to do that. And so MAPS is doing international trainings for more humanitarian reasons. We have done one in Sarajevo with people from Ukraine and all over, but we've had to make, Lykos is now a separate company. We have now a company heading towards an IPO with this whole kind of logic. And so they're basically saying that they don't want MAPS to do anything in the United States or Europe, even though they've stopped doing everything in Europe. So again, these are the kind of things that we have to work out. So MAPS is doing some training in certain locations. And so I think what the training program, though, is that we need people that there's kind of a marketing aspect to this too. So you should contact the organization. But what they're saying is that they're looking at certain states in certain locations where high numbers of PTSD patients are treated, and they have a very kind of a business marketing kind of perspective. I always felt you build it around the therapists. They're trying to build it around the kind of the patients, you could say, or so, even if they're traditional patients. I think my thing is always it's about the therapist, and that's the key important thing. Build it about the therapist. So when the trainings start up again, it's hard to say. I would say that but I think that shortly after the FDA approval, there will be trainings for certain people of high priority, large prescribers that they think in their minds in certain states. I don't know what the algorithm is going to be for that. I would say that the treatment manual that's on our website is, the most important tool to explain what our therapeutic approach is. We don't really like the ones that we did, at least our therapists don't really like the ones that were done all online. They were done during the pandemic. Those trainings they didn't really like. They just felt like it's too delicate to kind of not have time to process with people in person and smaller groups and all. So I'm sad to say that it may be a while before there can be a training there. The Lycos and MAPS are in another little dispute where they actually are wanting me to take down the treatment manual from the website. And we're not going to do that, but they're like, again, in their imagination, this was kind of a long shot.
We have to come close to a conclusion with you. I want to ask you a personal question.
Okay.
Things are moving into conclusion in this grand edifice, this great work of yours is moving towards where it's no longer really your baby in the same way.
Right.
What do you see for yourself coming ahead? You're a relatively young man compared to some of us, right? And so what do you want for yourself? What are you looking towards?
Well, so on Wednesday, I have something incredible. So I'm leaving on Tuesday to go to San Francisco, and we're having a meeting with the CEO of the Clinton Health Access Initiative, Buddy Shaw, introduced to us by Protic, and it's about a possible collaboration to bring MDMA around the world for humanitarian projects in different high trauma, low resource countries. So I see that for me. Also, at the end of this month, I'm going to Abu Dhabi and Dubai. And I'm trying to meet Arab therapists and speak in this Arab world. And then we're even trying to have a training in Lebanon, to see what we can do. And it's hard to say what the war is going to do. And so what I see for myself doing is for the next bit of time, which could be significant, I think that it's like the DNA of this new thing, Lycos, is being established. And I think there needs to be, it's not like there's a conclusion of everything. It's actually like the early years of a child. It could easily, turn into a problem child, as Albert Hoffman talked about LSD, or it could turn into a wonder child. But I think that it's got to be carefully watched. A big question, even a small question, management from just business point of view. You have public benefit metrics and you want to link it to people's performance, to their bonuses and to their stock options. And so that they're not just say, oh, let me make the most money and let me, forget about the rest of the world and let me just boost up the stock price and So there's this battle of how do we do that? And there's always pressure, make it applicable to the most minimum amount of our salaries, So what I think is that now is the time to bear down for the next couple of years as this new thing is launched, because it's very fluid. You could say that it's a neuroplastic state of, yes, this launching, this kind of, and that what Lycos is and how it becomes. And it will also, we still need like $75 to $100 million before this big pharma commercialization machine, assuming FDA approval and everything happens, gets to cash flow positive. And then we become this marketing engine that will take other kind of psychedelics that other people develop and, have the communications with the therapist so that what I want to do is try to find more impact investors that are the right kind of financial capital that we need. So I think that me getting back to where I spend a lot more time tripping will take a couple of years.
Don't forget your 5-MeO, baby. Well, that's a good note. I think agreed to stop on. So Thank you so much on behalf of our group.
Yeah.
Have a good one. Thanks, Rick.
Goodbye. Great.
Good night.
Okay, there you have it. What do you want us to do? Clean up, straighten up?